Hi, I'm Serena Heyn, and this is my field experience summary video. So, I was at Woodrow Wilson in a kindergarten classroom, and first, before I go into the spiel, I just would like to mention that, I was nervous at first going into a kindergarten classroom because one of my fears was kind of how do I distinguish between just things that a kindergartner says versus what something an ELL student would say. And that actually proved not to be a big problem because, being around all those kindergartners, it was kind of easy to see what patterns tended to happen within a kindergartner versus what would happen with an ELL student. And there are similarities, like both forget to use determiners, so instead of saying what are you drawing, it usually was just what you drawing. So and that was just across the board, kindergartners and ELL students. So just things like that were interesting to witness and learn about. So just a general layout of the classroom, you walk into the door, and then to the left side of the classroom is cubbies, and then kind of to the right is starting with table groups. In front of the classroom, next to the cubbies and beyond the tables, was a rug, a whiteboard, the teacher's chair, and then at the back of the rug was the desk. Behind the desk and the table groups, more to the right side of the classroom when you're walking in, was kind of their play area, so a sand table, reading corner, a kitchen, stuff like that. So that's just a general layout. The class was about 20 students, 19 I think, and about I want to say 8 were ELL students. So there were quite a few. Definitely not as many as some other people have been mentioning, but yeah. I chose to kind of focus on 3 students. One from Chad, who has been here since September, who's pretty much nonverbal. He's still in like the primary phase of learning English, where he isn't silent, but he's still limited to about 1 or 2 familiar words, one of which is snowman. So that's pretty cute. Then there was a boy from Nepal who's been here since last June, who was pretty good at speaking. He liked to talk a lot, and he was pretty good at it. Not perfect, but could form sentences. And then there was a little girl from Mexico, and I'm actually going to talk about her writing. She had gone back to Mexico for 2 months before I had come into the classroom, so the teacher was telling me that she had deteriorated in her English, which wasn't ideal, but yeah, so I'm going to talk about those 3. Generally speaking, the class did really well together. They were super sweet to each other. There were some cliques, like a little girls group, and the ELL students tended to play together, which is maybe just because when they did group activities, those kids were placed together because they're at generally the same level of learning academically, so that would happen. But the whole class was so sweet, and they loved the teacher. Her role was in some ways a caretaker as much as a teacher, but not overpowering, which I thought was kind of cool that she had figured out that balance, because the kids adored her and knew that they could come to her, but she wasn't a mom. And I'm not sure of parent situations within the classroom, but that is what I witnessed. So my first concrete example, now that you know about the classroom, I'm going to be talking about the little boy from Nepal. And one thing I mentioned in my response was that he often wouldn't say an L or an R, which is interesting because we learned about those liquid sounds in one of the Finnegan chapters. So it was cool to see that in real life. So an example of what he'd say probably instead of probably, and he'd say kellet instead of carrot, and he said call instead of car. So just some interesting examples. And then the next concrete example I have is from the kid, the little boy from Chad. So just talking about kind of that, he's pretty much nonverbal. He wasn't even really able to write his own name. He wasn't able to write any words, but not even his own name, which was kind of interesting. And I actually got to see the teacher do some testing, just end of year testing on their letter recognition. And rather than actually testing him, she just kind of sat down and went over each letter and said, say A, and pointed to the letter, say C, pointed to the letter, say D. And so that was kind of interesting, and it just kind of opens your eyes to, you know, how much these kids really know and how much they can grow within the year. Even if it's not a lot, he's learned so much within the year, but there's still a lot of work to do. So some of the words that he would say include snowman, eyes, ear, teacher. That was a frequent phrase. He'd say, teacher, look, teacher, look, teacher, look. But it wasn't, he wouldn't say the R at the end. It was just teacher, look, teacher, look, every time he did something. So that was pretty cute. But those are just some examples: boy, girl, baby. So that's the second concrete example. And my final concrete example, the writing example, I was in the class when they were writing birthday notes to a little girl named Willow, W-I-L-L-O-W, and the little girl from Mexico, when she wrote hers, she would write how she would say it. So she would say her name as Wello, so then when she wrote it, it was W-E-L-L-O. And what was interesting to me is a lot of her writing would frequently not have the ending on it. You know, so if it said deer, it would usually just say D-E-E, no R. Or if it was Wello, it ended in an O, not a W. Or stop was S-T-A, not S-T-O-P. So, given that kindergartners don't really write sentences, those are just kind of some concrete examples of the words that she was writing and just kind of the idea of the patterns that she was exhibiting in her language. So yeah, thanks for watching.